Okay, so yesterday I reacted to Lee Cronin's The Mummy trailer, and I was kind of talking about it being a remake of the OG Mummy from 1999 with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz. And turns out in the comments it was brought to my attention that what I thought was the OG Mummy is actually a remake of a 1932 version of The Mummy. So I have to set the record straight here, because I did genuinely think that the Brendan Fraser Mummy, the one that we all knew and some of us grew up with, was the original. So clearly I needed to get my facts straight. I did some researching, and I'm guessing some of you might actually be in the same boat. So let's just walk through really quickly the actual history of these Mummy films, starting with the actual original and moving up to what the Lee Cronin Mummy from yesterday's reaction video actually is. So it's starting at the beginning in 1932. Boris Karloff and Universal Studios came up with kind of like an original Universal Monsters lineup alongside Dracula and Frankenstein is kind of like a pure gothic horror. Karloff plays Imhotep, an ancient Egyptian high priest who was buried alive for trying to resurrect his forbidden lover. The British archaeologists accidentally bring him back to life by reading from the Scroll of Thoth. Sound eerily familiar? But that's only the opening, because actually for most of the film, the mummy is actually disguised as a modern Egyptian named Ardeth Bey, searching for the reincarnation of his lost love. It's kind of described as atmospheric, slow-burning, a romance with more romance than monster horror. The whole film was actually inspired by the 1922 discovery of King Tut's tomb and all those Curse of the Pharaoh stories that had America obsessed with ancient Egypt. The movie's success even spawned some follow-up films in the 40s with a different mummy character named Karis. But the 1932 original established the template. That's the film that Lee Cronin is actually reimagining, not the Brendan Fraser version. Now, the version that most of us actually know, the 1999 Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz version, is technically a remake of the 1932 film, but kind of in name only. Director Stephen Sommers basically said, what if we made Indiana Jones in Egypt? And it worked. I mean, the film made a lot of money and multiple sequels, and even The Scorpion King off of that. But ultimately there were complete tone shifts. Brendan Fraser playing Rick O'Connell was this roguish adventurer, and Rachel Weisz is Evelyn, an Egyptologist, and they accidentally resurrect Imhotep, who's got actual godlike powers, but instead of gothic horror, it leaned more into action adventure with comedy, romance, and those stupid nightmare scarabs we all remember. Fun fact, Universal originally offered the role to Tom Cruise, who I guess that role came back around for him, Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, but none of them were interested. They ended up casting Brendan Fraser because of his success in George of the Jungle, but ultimately he wasn't quite a big movie star yet, so they could pay him less money. But Fraser understood the assignment. His character really just doesn't take himself too seriously, which I think is why it worked. Of course, in 2017, Universal looked at the MCU success and decided to create the Dark Universe, a shared cinematic universe with all their classic monsters, kind of again similar to 1932. They launched it with The Mummy, starring Tom Cruise. It should have worked. The cast was pretty good. They even had Javier Bardem lined up as Frankenstein's monster and Johnny Depp for the Invisible Man. In future movies, they had a whole universe lined up, but it bombed hard. Ultimately, the Dark Universe was canceled after just one movie. And what went wrong? Well, supposedly the tone was just all over the place. It couldn't decide if it was a horror or action, so it ended up being neither. Brendan Fraser actually nailed it in an interview, saying the ingredient that we had going on for our Mummy, which I didn't see in the new one, was fun. It was too much of a straight ahead horror movie. The Mummy should be a thrill ride, but not terrifying and scary. Plus, Tom Cruise had major control of the movie, and it kind of just became about him doing Ethan Hunt stuff instead of being about the actual Mummy. I mean, the film also literally stops for like 20 minutes just to set up the Dark Universe with extreme expedition dumps. All 7 planned Dark Universe films got scrapped, and the franchise that was supposed to rival the MCU died instantly. Which brings us to what I actually reacted to yesterday. Lee Cronin's The Mummy, coming April 17th, 2026. And this is actually going back to the original horror roots, but in a completely different way. Lee Cronin directed Evil Dead Rise, which was genuinely terrifying. And when he was hired for this project, he said this will be unlike any Mummy movie you've ever laid eyeballs on, saying that I'm digging deep into the earth to raise something very ancient and very frightening. The plot is of a journalist's young daughter, Katie, who disappears in the desert. 8 years later, she's returned to the family, but something is very wrong with her. What should be a joyful reunion ultimately becomes a nightmare. It's claiming to be a body horror, with the trailer showing skin peeling, blood, insects crawling out of bodies, creepy chanting. I mean, it looks like it's possible Katie herself could even be the Mummy, which would be really interesting. And supposedly this is explicitly standalone, no connect to any previous Mummy film, not part of some universe, just a new take from Warner Brothers. And if Cronin can bring the same energy as Evil Dead Rise, from what I've seen, we might actually get a Mummy movie again. Quick bonus, in November 2025, it was announced that Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz are reuniting for a 4th adventure-style Mummy movie. Fraser's career comeback has been incredible, and bringing him back to the role that made him a star feels just so right. No plot details have been released yet, but, you know, the nostalgia factor alone is going to be massive. Hopefully they can come up with something good and special and nail it, and I have heard rumor they're going to ignore the 3rd movie, which I think is for the best. The 3rd movie was crap. Anyway, so there you have it. Hopefully I have set the record straight. The 1932 Gothic horror original is actually going to be the one that this new Mummy is based on. Brendan Fraser, sadly, is not the OG Mummy. It's actually the 3rd iteration. Let me know in the comments which Mummy movie is your favorite. Did you know about the original 1932 version? Or were you like me and actually thought that Brendan Fraser Mummy was the original Mummy? Are you excited for the new movie? I actually think it looks really cool. I am interested to learn more about it. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and peace out.